The first of our afternoon sessions is with Rustim about employment and BEE. Rustim is an expert on BEE and on employment, specifically for people with disabilities. So we look forward to him. So I think we should maybe just directly jump into it and just kind of get started with, you know, why should people with disabilities learn about or even care about BEE?
Well, there are many elements that are of benefit to persons with disabilities that may not be very clear in terms of what one reads. So let's look at the ownership element. If you are a Black disabled woman, then you own 10% of a company, then you will meet the 40% minimum requirement in order for that entity not to be discounted. So that's a huge benefit. In terms of the next element of the scorecard, which is management, there's a couple of points there for a company that is able to get 2% being Black disabled employees. So if you're a person with a disability, you know that you can tell them that you can earn them 2 points. In terms of skills development, there are learnerships that an employer can put you on that will also contribute towards an additional 25 points, up to 25 points in terms of the skills development component. And then if you're an entrepreneur with a disability and you appeal to the enterprise development spend or the supplier development spend, then that's a benefit to you as well. And then finally, on the socioeconomic development element, if you are a disability organization like QASA, for example, then you can earn a company 5 points on the scorecard. So it's important that if you're a person or an organization dealing with disability, that you understand these various components and you know how to have a conversation with a company wanting to increase their BBBEE scorecard.
Yeah, and I think something very important that you touch on there is exactly that. I think a lot of people think that you know, it's only for big corporations who want you know, those BEE points and all the benefits it gets them from, but it also is very helpful to the individual to know about that, and then obviously also for small business owners who can also benefit from it. So I think that's first of all a very important thing to talk about, because your entire series is about how candidates can you know, leverage that BEE score points in a way to make themselves you know, to support their businesses, to support their employer, but also to make themselves a more appealing candidate for businesses. And specifically something that you mentioned in your article for this issue is just that, you know, what are some of the things that candidates can do to make themselves slightly more appealing to the market. And so that's mainly my question now as well, is just what are some of the things that you can list now or mention that people can do today to make themselves more appealing to a potential employer?
Okay, so let me give a shout out to the QASA work readiness program. That's a very good place to start. Because if that's almost like a license to engage with the business world or in the world of employment. So I definitely think that consider that if you want to be able to get a start. But what employees are looking for, they're looking for skills. So you can equip yourself with skills. Now, you don't need to necessarily go to a university or to go to a TVET college to get skills. You can learn things online. There's a lot of opportunities out there. And very often companies want a demonstration of competence and not necessarily a certificate. Yes, you need a matric. And most people will say to get a job, you need a matric. But even a matric is not always necessarily a requirement. So on your hard skills, if you want to be a telephonist, you need to go and learn telephony. But at another level, you also need to focus on certain life skills, soft skills. Because very often soft skills will be able to demonstrate to a company that you're a right fit. You're going to match into our culture. You know, you've got certain life skills like communication, you know, certain etiquettes, dress properly or accordingly, you know, appropriately. So I think that getting equipped at that level, and then also network. It's very important to network. Network, firstly, I think with disability organizations, right? Because those are hubs of knowledge. So go to your local QASA office, speak to them there, you know, ask them what opportunities they have available, you know, what advice do they have to give? Can I get onto the next cohort of the work readiness program? So that is one way of starting, but you can also look broadly. If you look at initiatives like Rambi, they are always offering opportunities in the media, open days, go to the local TVET colleges. They also do open days. Now you can learn so much by going to events like this, because then you're going to get an idea of what is available and what you can do. So yeah, that's what I would suggest.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's so important also that you were mentioning is that there's a whole range of things that employers look at, not only, you know, whether or not you have a matric certificate, whether or not you have a degree or something like that. It's also a lot of the times, as you mentioned, soft skills. You know, how do you conduct yourself in the interview? How do you relate to people around you? You know, that kind of stuff. And then, as you also said, the QASA Work Readiness Program actually does assist their members with that. And then, of course, as you said, networking to get yourself into the conversations and to find out where the business opportunities really are. Yeah, and I think so. Leading up to that is also a very interesting take on what the actual opportunities are that have been created with COVID-19 and the lockdown. Because from the most people's perspective, you know, the economy is now in a really bad state, and you know, a lot of people have lost their jobs, etc. But that also means that business are looking for new ways in which it can actually benefit itself and you know, kind of earn a bit of tax rebates and things like that. And so things like BEE start playing a really, really important role. And so I think a very good question for people to ask is, you know, how can people with disabilities make the most of the post-lockdown economy?
So lockdown is bad, right? COVID-19 is bad. I mean, there's nothing good about it. However, there are positive lessons that have been learned. And one of the big spoken about topics is this notion of remote working. Now, that kind of talks directly to a person in a wheelchair sitting at home on a computer, and that's exactly what I'm doing now in this webinar. I'm sitting at home talking to a computer, and look at my lovely background. I'm giving away where I come from. Okay, so that's becoming, we call it a new normal, right? But how can a person in a wheelchair that may be challenged or limited in terms of transport or getting from point to point, how can that person utilize their home environment and in a sense create an equal playing field, okay, whereby they can utilize their skills? So employers are keen on that. There's a very well-known car hiring company that I know of that specifically actively looks for persons, wheelchair-bound people that can work from home, you know, because it just revolutionizes their business. And they told me that themselves. So how do we as persons with disabilities, tune our skills to master basics like Microsoft Office, Zoom, those type of skills. And then how do we go out and promote ourselves? Now, in that regard, I think there's a role to play by an organization like QASA, because it's important to create a knowledge base as an organization that you can share with your members, so that, when people show a liking or a competence that, I love to work from home, it will definitely stand both organization and individual in good stead.
That's also a very important point that you make, that working from home has actually been a really great opportunity for many people with disabilities in getting that, just opening some doors and opening new possibilities to businesses, because they realize people with disabilities can be, very productive even while from home. And so the next thing that I was wanting to ask you was, it's a bit of a difficult discussion to have, and a difficult thing for people sometimes to disclose their disability. And so I just wanted to know, why should people consider disclosing their disability, especially if it's something, obviously, if you're a wheelchair user, it will be very difficult for you not to do that with your business, because you need to make sure it's acceptable or accessible, apologies. But also, like, if you have maybe a mental disability, how would you go about disclosing that? And is it something that you feel is compulsory?
Well, nothing's compulsory from an employment perspective. However, anybody that wants to be reasonably accommodated needs to follow a process. And part of that process is a declaration that you are disabled and proof that you are disabled. So you need to have the appropriate doctor's letter that will prove your disability. And then also it must be very clearly defined as to what the reasonable accommodation is going to be, because the organization or your employer would need to, of course, cover those costs. So if you don't disclose, then you put yourself at a disadvantage, because disclosure means that you are a highly sought after employee for the business. For example, let's look at employment equity in South Africa. At the moment, we're at 1.1%, and we should be at 7.5%. So companies are looking for persons with disabilities that, and especially if you're in a job already, right? There is certain advantages. So one of those advantages is that companies have to make sure that they have persons with disabilities at every level in the company, from the unskilled all the way up to top senior management. So if you want to progress in a company, your easiest way to progress is when you're a person with a disability, because the opportunities within the company, in most cases, you'd be at a distinct advantage. You muted.
Sorry, apologies. Yes, I think that's a very good point, and that's very true. A lot of people don't think about it that way, but there are some advantages once you're in the workplace that you might be just fast tracked into a certain position, and be a bit of an advantage to that. What advice would you have for any job seekers, specifically now going into post lockdown and post COVID-19 economy?
Okay, so definitely do a professional job of your CV, right? Because I think that is the document that promotes you the best. Do not be scared to indicate in there that you are a person with a disability. And I would suggest, don't just tick disabled, but to give them a diagnosis of your disability. So let me give you an example of myself. So I'm physically disabled. I have cerebral palsy, and I'm a wheelchair user. Immediately, it says a lot in terms of what the prospective employer can expect. You know, so I think that is important. Don't be shy to list your soft skills. You know, if you've done a communication course somewhere, you've maybe done an HIV course somewhere, this is very valuable. This type of intelligence or knowledge is very valuable. So I think the CV is the right place. The next thing is network. And nowadays, you don't need to physically go to a space to network. Everything is happening on Zoom. I think we're having Zoom overload. Okay, but go and engage on the various platforms so that you can get to know what's out there, and people can get to know you. Most importantly.
Yeah, I think that's very valid points that you make, and I think especially something people don't think about is going into a bit more detail about what exactly your disability is and your requirements around that, so that the employer better understands it. Because unfortunately, that is sometimes the case, that the employer might not have any interaction with someone who is a wheelchair user before, and so then that offers them a bit more insight, which is very valuable. Okay, great. So we do have a few questions already. The first is from Raven. He says, greetings, Rustim. Does modifying a home office, is that included in the reasonable accommodation requirements for businesses?
So the key word is office, not so much home, okay? But office. And the reason why is that the office implies that you are working or you employed in that office. So because that word is in there, yes, it is seen as a reasonable accommodation. So from an employer point of view, let's say that you need to upgrade your equipment, or you need a special table because you need to have a dedicated space within your household, or you need internet to be installed or strengthened. Those are all reasonable accommodation type of considerations. Now, some people may argue that that's just general business requirements, which it is. But the fact that, you know, you're enabling a person with a disability means that it's reasonable accommodation. And it can also then be classified by the employer as a reasonable accommodation expense. And of course, that makes it tax deductible in the hands of the employer.
Yeah, great. And then we have a question from Susie, or a comment. She says, fascinating to hear this info. I lost my job after 30 years due to paralysis. It's been a nightmare as work from the age of 18 as a nursing sister and in the pharmaceutical industry as a representative. Difficult situations when limited by many factors, for example, pain. So Susie, we're very sorry to hear that, but I think it might be also interesting to talk about you know, what options are there for people who were in the industry and who left? Specifically here, I'm thinking of the possibility of also doing some consultant work. So if you can comment on that, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, you cannot take experience away from anybody. So that is a wealth of experience. And if you just look at Susie's career background, she's a nursing sister. So, you know, she understands disability from another perspective. So she can also give an interpretation of, from a medical point of view, in terms of disability. And that could be very, very valuable. I would think that personal care, for example, would be a subject matter that would come naturally to her. You know, so how do you, as a person who's maybe acquired an injury and you become disabled, what's the type of advice that a nursing sister could give a person like that. I would guess absolutely relevant, you know. So there is something that because she was there and she is disabled, her interpretation and her support and her understanding is of such great value. So I would definitely say look at it from that perspective.
Yes, and I think that's something very important that you're also touching on, which was what I was hoping for, is that, you know, if you are a bit at an advantage if you are injured later in life, because you can pull on some of your work experience, some of your knowledge to kind of find yourself on another career path, which I think is great. Also, another comment from Susie is just, and oh, great, now she actually says, I now train carers and I love it. Anyone who's caring professional is an awesome person and deserves many medals. So she is actually using that knowledge to train carers, so that's great. Then we have one comment from Facebook, actually. It's from Jody, who says, how many points will independent contractors with a disability earn?
Okay. Independent contractor implies that you are a business. And as a business with a disability, there's nothing obvious. However, a company can do supplier development with you, or they can do enterprise development with you. So over a period of time, you can earn a company between 5 to 10 points just on those two categories for a period of up to 3 years. Now, get to understand that, and you definitely put yourself at a good advantage.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something important for people to consider as well. So that's all of the questions we have at the moment from the Zoom meeting as well as from Facebook. I think from my side, I just wanted to also say that, and you can maybe comment on this or add to this since you are the expert, but there are also opportunities for people to have their CV done by a company. You specifically mentioned about having a professional CV. Most of us kind of think of a CV as something that I have to do on my own, but there are businesses that you can contract. So maybe if there's any companies, organizations, or individuals that you can suggest that that our readers can contact to help them into the job market.
What I would suggest is have a look at a few YouTube videos. There are some very, very good advice there. You can pay an arm and a leg. I think I was quoted something like 8,000 Rand to do my CV. Okay. And I was quite shocked when the guy sat me down for a day and said, okay, fine, we're now going to dissect your life and put it all together. So yes, you can go to professionals, but I would suggest start at a point where you go to the internet, not just YouTube, but go to the internet, have a look at what catches your fancy. You'll also find a lot of templates there. So it's not exactly something that you need to create. What also happens with CVs today is that some CVs are no longer one-dimensional piece of white paper with black text on it. What some people do is that they embed it with a short video of themselves. Okay, and that does two things. Number one, people can see you, they can hear you, but also they will be softened to the disability, especially if you're a wheelchair user. Okay, because then they know. And then when you do get an interview, it's not an embarrassing moment, right? So I would definitely play around with that. And then if you start going to employment agencies, then they will basically draft something which you can always ask them to give you afterwards. If they can give you, you know, their written up CV that they submitted. Other than that, I wouldn't advise people to pay for a CV. Unless it's, if you're in a professional situation and you want to be as silly as I was for 8,000 Rand for a CV.
Yeah. And I think also something that you point out, which is very, very true, is that, you know, there is so many online resources that are free. And I think that also goes to some of the skills that you were mentioning. There's a lot of YouTube videos that you can watch to teach you about Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, all of that. So really to take advantage of all the opportunities that are there. Great, thank you so much, Rustim.
Okay.
Raven, I don't know if you have anything else that you would like to add or ask.
Yes, please. Thank you very much, Mr. Rustim. Thank you. Well done for a very good presentation. Very informative. Even someone that has been employed for years and years, like not at Quasar, but like I have a question regarding reasonable accommodation. The lifespan of reasonable accommodation. If I'm a new employee or a new employer, how long would I have to consider a reasonable accommodation for the candidate?
The reasonable accommodation stands throughout your employment. So what happens when you go through the employment process is that an employer can give you a conditional job offer. It's the only time when an employer can do that, if for a person with a disability. During that period, they determine what that reasonable accommodation would be in order to accommodate you into the work environment. Now that could be there all the time. Let me give you an example. So let's say you're a wheelchair user and they need to build a ramp. They can't exactly go take the ramp away. That would be silly, right? Where, for example, reasonable accommodation needs to change, and this can happen for anybody, it could happen also for an ordinary employee, is if the impairment changes or the disability changes. Like, let's say, for example, it could be that you get up out of your wheelchair and start walking. Well, then you're not disabled anymore, are you? You're going to lose your reasonable accommodation, right? But very often you would have a situation where the impairment actually deteriorates. And in a case like that, then the reasonable accommodation needs to be re-looked at. So reasonable accommodation doesn't go away. It always remains relevant.
Thank you. Thank you for that information. A follow-up question on that is, you mentioned when the impairment changes. So if, for argument's sake, the wheelchair user happens to become hearing impaired, do you disclose again, or what is the process?
Yes. So whatever your reasonable accommodation is, and that's why I say you don't need to necessarily be disabled. So you could be able-bodied and become hearing impaired. So the same would happen if you're a disabled person, you become hearing impaired. So being hearing impaired means that what is the type of accommodation that you're going to need? Are you going to need a special communicator that will allow speech to text? You know, when we think about hearing impairments or deafness, we immediately think about a sign language interpreter, and you think about a sign language interpreter, you think about huge costs. But a very small percentage of the hearing impaired community are actually deaf that need sign language interpreting. So it could be that a little assistive device could make the world of difference. And the technology nowadays is astounding. You can almost get an interpretation in real time where somebody talks to you, and as they talk to you, you can actually see what they're saying because of the text-to-speech not just if you have a disability, but it applies to anybody that's an employee. It's their right.
Rustim, thank you. You have all the relevant information at hand. It's good to have you as a contributor to Rolling Inspiration. It's good to have you on this segment of the program. Thank you very much for informing us.